Welcome to Suddenly Different, where we explore stories and strategies for life when it doesn't go to plan. I'm Leigh-Anne Charland, inviting you to join me on this journey. What happens when the noise of life suddenly disappears? Not because the world went quiet, but because your body did. In her 40s, on an ordinary flight, my guest, Jeni, lost her hearing. That single moment reshaped everything: her identity, her career, her relationships, and her choices. But Jeni's story isn't just about loss, it's about courage and an amazing sense of humour, tenacity, and the surprising joy that can come when life takes you in an unexpected direction. She went on to study human behaviour, become a coach, a mentor to entrepreneurs, hosted 10 international high school students, and with her husband continued to build and later sell a business that supported their international lifestyle. Today, Jeni joins me to share the honest truth about living with hearing loss and the strategies that helped her adapt and the moments of joy she would never have imagined could happen. So, Jeni, it's wonderful to see you. Thank you for coming to us directly from Bali.
Thank you.
And even though we know that the backdrop is a backdrop, I know down the road is the beach.
It is not far. It is definitely not far.
So, Jeni, I've known you for about
Coming
14
up
years.
10. Yeah, it's a long time. Yeah.
A long time. And so I met you coaching.
Mm-hmm.
And I think
room.
the first time that I knew that you had a hearing problem was that you asked to sit in the front of the room.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
that there weren't people in front of you. So can you take us back to that moment, if you can, to that moment on that flight? What did you notice first? Was it fear, confusion, or something else?
Well, firstly, thank you for having me. Thanks for inviting me to join you today. And bear with me, I have just getting over a cold, so hopefully I'm not going to cough at everybody. 26th of December 2010, marked in my mind with permanent texter. The first thing I noticed was I was just sitting there. We're about 10 minutes out of Melbourne, flying to Brisbane, fortunately, because the next leg was Brisbane on to London. Everything, sitting there reading my book, I was traveling on my own, and there was this like loud banging noise. And I looked around thinking, holy shit, the plane, there's something wrong with the plane. Looking around, nobody else was reacting. And that's not a good sign, because the noise was basically, I think, my hearing imploding. And then there was just sort of rushing noises, and then everything started to spin. So fortunately for me, not so much this poor young woman sitting, I had a spare seat next to me, I was in the aisle, and then this young woman sitting in the window was actually an off-duty flight attendant. So she realised very quickly that there was something wrong, because I'd lost my balance. Basically, through the hearing, my ear imploding, my world was just spinning. So, of course, I was horribly, horribly sick. So this poor girl spent a 2-hour flight sort of swapping between a sick bag, horribly enough, and oxygen. So I actually don't remember a lot of the flight, just a few snippets. One, like in the movies, there was a doctor on board. They got him to come and check me. I do remember him putting his finger up and, follow my finger with your eyes, and my eyes were flickering. And that's actually a sign of brain injury. I know now. I didn't know then, fortunately. He just said to me, keep your eyes closed. I was aware of them discussing landing in Sydney to get me off. He said that, my vitals were okay, so I'd be okay to go on to Brisbane. But I was just violently ill. And like I said, this poor woman sitting next to me just spent the whole 2-hour flight literally looking after me. I remember when we landed, they asked everybody to stay put I'm going to get emotional talking about it, while paramedics offloaded me. And I remember I don't remember any of that, but I remember in the ambulance asking them to contact my cousin because she was waiting for me in international departures, that I wouldn't be coming, and getting them to get my luggage, and then nothing. I woke up the next morning in hospital. Interestingly enough, nobody knew where I was. They hadn't tried to contact any relatives, or so for my family, I disappeared. Nobody knew where I was.
My goodness.
So maybe they were trying to get sense out of me, and I don't remember that. But yeah, I literally disappeared from when I got off that plane, maybe 7 p.m. until I woke up at 4 a.m., I think, at the hospital, and they said to me, "You can go now." It's like, go where? Like, I'm in transit. I can't go and check into a hotel at PM. Where am I going to go? So they begrudgingly allowed me to stay until about 8 a.m. when I rang a friend, and she came and got me.
So at that point in time, had your hearing completely gone?
Yeah,
Or
completely. So left ear completely gone and no balance. Even standing, like when if you hold your nose, blow your ears, and you kind of get that. That was my life. I literally had no balance and was almost sort of holding on to the wall to walk. So it was, I just remember thinking, you're telling me I'm okay to go, and I can't even stand up straight here. It was just the weirdest thing of, hopefully our health in system has improved to, a little bit more duty of care than send some woman on her own with a huge bag of luggage out into the street at 4 o'clock in the morning. And, you seem to be okay. Your vitals are good. Off you go then.
and that is the interesting part. When Jeni was the person who was with me when I had my initial neurological episode, and I had a similar experience. I was only in emergency for the mandatory, 6 or 8 hours, that if they think you've got a brain injury, and then once they satisfy their criteria that you don't, off you
You're
go.
pushed out the door.
And that is absolutely bizarre. You're by yourself and no one knows where you are. And I mean, considering that they had your handbag, your passport would have been in it.
Correct. My address, like, Google it. It's not that hard.
No, that is just really so. It really is that at that time, in those situations, the emergency department was like RACQ or RACV. Get you back on the road.
Absolutely. Yeah. Push me back
I
into the
gather
traffic.
no referrals.
Nope.
No explanation. My goodness. So then when you realised that you couldn't hear out of one ear and only a little bit, what kind of story was building in your mind about what was going on, seeing as the medical team had told you nothing?
Well, my first thing was, how the hell do I get home?
Exactly.
I'm in Brisbane, and we lived in northern Victoria, or actually, border of New South Wales and Victoria, 2,000 kilometres away. So I rang my friend, she came and got me, and my husband was saying, I will drive to get you, because I wasn't getting on a plane again, because I still had hearing in one ear, so I didn't want to impact that. In the end, I stayed with my friend for a few days and then booked myself on a train, because I thought, if Nick drives 2 days to pick me up with our kids who were young at the time, he's then got to drive 2 days home, because I can't stand up straight. There's no way I can drive. So in the end, I booked myself on a train. So I did Brisbane to Sydney, stayed in Sydney overnight, back on the train, and actually went to Albury, and Nick picked me up from there. So first concern was just getting home. I think the big thing for me, because travel has always been part of our pleasure time, will I ever be able to fly again? That was a big concern. I think initially I was kind of hoping that it would fix itself, and in time I would hear again. But I did have a specialist. So I booked in with him in January, and he had a look, and in the end went back in surgically and had a look, and basically the prognosis was, everything looks normal. We just don't know why it's not working. Like zero hearing, completely dead. And I had a device that they'd put into my ear a couple of years earlier. They took that out on me, which I had low hearing anyway, sort of probably 60, 70%. And this was a device that kind of amplifies what I could hear. They took that out and said, let's just wait and see. But nothing happened. So it was really, I think, initially, how do I get home? Hope that it would self-repair. And then when nothing, like just nothing changed, it was like, okay, well, now what are the options of where do we go from here? Because it's so isolating being deaf in one ear. And we had some bullying going on at work between a staff member and bullying another person. And I missed that because I couldn't hear what was going on. So it was sort of this just a waiting game, and hope, I think, was that initial thing. And a lot of sort of fear about, well, what does this mean if I can't hear? Are there medical options? But really just a little bit of where do we go from here?
Yeah. And with your husband, Nick, working, the kids not understanding, they wouldn't have been kids if they didn't take advantage of the fact that you couldn't hear.
Well, it was actually, I'm just kind of going back through the timeline. Oscar was, how old would they have been? 2011, 16, 15, somewhere around there. He was about to head off on a year of exchange. So I think there was a whole bunch of stuff going on about, getting him out of the country and still dealing with this. We kind of dealt with it, I think, in with humor. My phone would ring and I would hear it, but I didn't know. I had no directional hearing because if you can only hear in one ear, everything happens there where unconsciously, if noise happens, you know that it's louder on this side, it's over here. Of course, I didn't do that. So I'd be, oh, where's my phone? And they'd just be, pointing in every direction and helping, like you said, talking on my deaf side and me not hearing and them probably rolling their eyes and this sort of thing. But yeah, I think in those first few weeks, it was probably there was a lot going on with getting Oscar off, and yeah, it was just a really odd time of dynamic changes within the family, me learning to become reliant on others for things that's not one of my skills.
No, I know you very
I'm
well.
fiercely
And
independent, and I can do this myself.
yes, yes, even if I'm wobbly.
Yeah, exactly. I'm fine.
Yeah. So I understanding, you because you were in business at that time with,
Yeah,
yeah. So you're in
yeah,
business, you've got staff, you're, having appropriate business control is vitally important because things easily slip through the cracks. Through the medical system, did you next get suggested to get some sort of assistance with the implant?
yeah. So we had a couple of options. One was two hearing aids. So the job of the one on the left, where I've lost my hearing, is the noise from the left side gets conducted Bluetooth, I guess, to the one on the right, but you get a delay, so everything happens twice. And even though it's just a microsecond, it's like hearing everything in unison, and that's not really appealing. Straight cochlear at that point wasn't an option because cochlear, I think they've made advances now, but it's designed for complete hearing loss, not half hearing loss. So in the end, I got it's a cochlear product, but it was developed by another company that developed the product, just didn't have the money to market it. So in the end, sold to cochlear, but it's called a Baha bone anchored hearing aid. So in the September, so this all happened, the incident happened on the 26th of December 2010. In September 2011, I had surgery to put they call it an abutment, or it's effectively like a bolt with a press stud fitting on the outside into my skull behind my ear. That had to heal for 2 months, and then I have a little device that it just clips on like a press stud. Um, what that does is it picks up the noise that I can't hear. It conducts it through my skull, and I hear it in my right ear. I remember the first day wearing it. So this is 11 months after I'd lost my hearing. It was November. We lived in Echuca. Thursday night was family night at the local RSL club. Walking in from the car park across the sealed asphalt car park to the front door, and there's a big canopy over to protect from the weather. And I was walking and I was struggling, and I said to Nick, "What is that noise?" And eventually we figured it out. It was our footsteps on the asphalt with the canopy over, and it was just so overwhelming. I had to turn it off because my world had become so quiet that it took me weeks of turning it on for a few minutes and then turning it off, because just the sheer volume in my head was just way, way, way too much. So it took a couple of months for me to be able to just turn it on in the morning and wear it all day. Now, 15 years later, I actually don't wear it a lot here in Bali because it's an $8,000 piece of technology and it sits off my head. We have a scooter or scooters, so we're constantly on and off the scooter, putting helmets on, and I'm scared that I'll either knock it off with the helmet and it'll get broken, or I won't realize and I'll lose it. Probably more likely to fall down a drain here or get run over by another scooter. But so I actually don't wear it a lot. But in Australia, particularly if when I'm working, running sessions, that sort of thing, I always wear it. But here I've learned to position myself that if we're sitting at a table, I'll sit at a particular corner at one end or the other so that my deaf side is away from everybody that I'm with and my hearing side is facing them. So you just do these adjustments to cope. But the biggest one, and I was actually talking about this a couple of days ago, was I always used to answer my mobile phone with my left hand and put it to my left ear, keeping my right hand free to do things. And the first few days, I'd answer my phone, put it to my left ear. I'm like, hello, hello, there's nobody there. What's going on? Hang on, let me try the other ear. Oh, there you are. So all these little things that I had to adjust that you don't even think about. But the first few days, I'm sure I was, sounded like a crazy woman where people were talking to me and I just didn't realize putting to my left ear, I just couldn't hear them. They were there.
Yeah. Because I can remember when we'd go out to restaurants or bars, not that we drank much.
Oh, no, definitely not. No
Yeah,
wine
so
here.
we'd but you turning it down or off. And
Off,
when we
yeah.
went to a concert together, I think Keith Urban, you
I
turned
just
it
take
off.
everything off. Yeah.
But we still had a good time.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so
Yeah.
that's the glorious thing, is that you've adapted to the condition. You've got a different way of dealing with it in Bali. And I remember with trainings, you just would position yourself up the front.
Mm-hmm.
Now, do you do a little bit of lip reading as well?
Definitely. And during COVID was really difficult because I lip read often. So between the bits that I hear and lip reading, I can put it together. And occasionally I miss words or misunderstand. But I think often it's just getting enough words that I can follow what's going on. But of course, during COVID, people were wearing masks and you can't lip read. And Nick one day was being very helpful and he said to me, you could probably get an exemption and not have to wear a mask. I said, well, but it's not me that I need to lip read, it's the other person. And he went, oh yeah, good point. Very helpful. But yeah, I do find it quite difficult. Or if people speak with their hand over their mouth, and even now when I'm working and running sessions, a lot of people do that. They put their hand to their mouth when they're speaking, and I'm not sure if it's a lack of confidence thing, but I'm often, oh, can you please take your hand away? If people are clicking a pen, it absolutely drives me bonkers. I have fidget toys when I run my EOS sessions. We have a lot of fidget toys that we put out on the table because it's a full day, 8-hour session. So, just something to kind of play with while you're thinking. And they're silent toys. Anything, I buy a box of 100 fidget spit toys, and anything that clicks or makes a noise goes in the bin or goes to St. Vinny's. Everything in there is silent. Probably not even conscious that I'm creating the space that I need. And I always start a session with a reminder that I'm deaf or announcing that I'm deaf. So I'm running a session here in Bali on Friday for a big leadership team of 16 for a company out of Singapore. And I will start with, I'm deaf. I have major hearing issues. I have all of my devices. If I ask you to repeat, or if I don't hear you, it's not that I'm ignoring you. I have chronic hearing issues. So if I ignore, you don't hear me, just throw something at me.
Yes, yes. Especially when we have invisible illnesses or problems. We have
Absolutely.
to speak up and, explain enough so that they can understand.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So when you lost your hearing, did that change how you saw yourself personally as a woman, your career, your relationships, the friends who hung around and the friends who disappeared?
Yeah, there were a few of that, a few sort of interesting comments. Somebody made a comment about my disability, and I was literally looking at myself going, what are you talking about? I've got all my arms and all my legs, and eventually it's like, oh, okay, you see my loss of hearing as a disability. I had honestly never thought of it that way. And I thought that said more about that person than about me. I've had a couple of people, interestingly, when I first got the hearing aid, my hair was quite short. And I thought that I would be very self-conscious and keep it covered, but I now refer to it as my ear, and I now have just a traditional hearing aid in my so-called good ear, which is not so good now either, age-related. But I make a joke, I'll get out my little box and say, oh, I carry my ears in a box and let me put them on. But I've had a few people say to me, oh, what's that on your head? Like, do you say that to people about a, prosthetic leg or something? Oh, what's that? But that really sort of almost disrespectful, yeah, interesting comments like that have been few and far between. I think from an identity, it was a real struggle at first of how, we had quite a substantial business. We ran an IT business. How do you run a business and be professional and look after your staff and your clients and everything else if you're deaf was sort of that first thing, is this a thing? Do I have to kind of back out of the business and let somebody who has everything, all their bits and pieces working? But I think it was short-lived. We just figured it out, and the things that I couldn't do, and I think this comes from Nick and I both being very entrepreneurial, and I'm sure he has dyslexia and probably ADHD, but never diagnosed officially. You just figure it out and you find people who can fill those gaps for you. So I probably modified my role. I was general manager at that point, and just put people into place to fill those gaps where I could no longer do those things effectively.
Yeah, yeah. Because, and it's really interesting what you say about being the first time somebody says to you, you've got a disability, right? Because even Lee Skinner, who I had on my first episode of podcast, it wasn't until he was in his 40s that somebody said, well, why don't you consider, disabled sport? And he was like, well, it took him time to get over how insulted he felt.
Yeah, absolutely. It is. It's really insulting.
Yeah, but really, if it was that if you had have needed financial support or if you'd been employed by somebody else, you would have been entitled to support that was extra. With my condition, especially the epilepsy, it's like people need to know that if something happens, it's not about them, it's about me. So it is interesting and confronting to be told that you are. But I mean, I remember one time when you were flying and how you said that originally you thought that you were flying. And
Yeah,
I can remember this was through my over caring mothering phase of our friendship when you had a bad cold and I knew that you were flying overseas and I was like holding my breath till you got home because I didn't know what caused your initially, and I just thought, God,
what's she doing?
well, no, I thought it was fantastic that you're going. The fact that you embraced life and pushed forward was amazing and probably is an inspiration for me today and has been part of my journey. It's kind of what would Jen do. But as far as especially with the uncertainty of knowing why did it happen.
Oh, absolutely. I remember the first flight was probably maybe a year to 2 years after, and I don't think Nick probably knew, but getting on that flight was just terrifying, thinking, "Oh god, what if it happens again?" And even now, like coming home, we're in Melbourne for the last 2 weeks, and came home on Sunday, and with a cold, and I'd flown Melbourne to Brisbane, Brisbane to Melbourne, Adelaide and back, and then flying home to Bali, and each time thinking, "Oh God, hope it doesn't happen again." But there's also the, if it does, we'll deal with it sort of mentality of, I never wanted to sit at home and wait to die. That was never an option. And if it does happen again, hopefully not. But yeah, very not knowing, like you, not really knowing what happened. You just have no way of knowing if something's going to happen again. If there's certainty, if I do that, that's what caused it, I won't do that again. You can make those decisions, but we don't know.
No, but living life as fully as you can. And I don't know whether you could have fit into the time span any more flights than you just had.
Yeah, no, we use the app called TripIt, and looking back at our previous trips, like it's just crazy. And we have now, living in Bali, just living our dream. We got home Sunday landed about 9:30 p.m. Nick flew to Vietnam on Monday at 2 p.m. So he was home for about 14 hours or something. And next month we're going to Mongolia. October, I'm going to the Philippines and Thailand. November, back to Australia. December, going to Europe for Christmas. We've built this incredible life here with all of this travel. And it's taken a long time to get to this point. But sometimes we just have to pinch ourselves and go, man, we did it. We did what we set out to do.
And you did. You decided you were staying down in the Torquay, and then you were in the city, and between the two, it's all, it's the lifestyle that we would love. Absolutely. Yeah. So from a mental health point of view, and I know how robust you are, and I know how strongly you believe about mentoring and coaching and getting to the bottom of things. Were there moments where you had to specifically push yourself a little bit harder in that mental health capacity, where you could have had the easy to slide into the...
I was thinking about this morning before I joined the podcast session. This all happened in 2010, and in 2014 I actually had another episode, and I think it was 2014. I woke up one morning and couldn't move. Nick was away. My kids actually had to help me get out of bed because I just could not move at all. And doctor's visits, specialist appointments, some really nasty medication to get me functioning until they could diagnose. I wrote it down because I could remember it. Normally I can only remember it's PR, but it's palindromic rheumatism. Chronic attacks of rheumatism that attack random places in my body for anything from 2 hours to 2 days. So imagine going to the doctor and explaining that. The first thing was, we'll refer you to a psychiatrist. But it took a few months to diagnose. I think my beliefs are the loss of the hearing, and then this was a real wake-up call for me. And I'd lived Nick's passion for years. We had this amazing IT services business. We had a bunch of staff. We had really great clients around Victoria. I'd been doing this for years. I was general manager. But it was Nick's dream. I have zero interest in IT. I loved the people side of the business, and now building our businesses now. We've actually got an employee now, which we're very excited about because we've got a little team again. We miss not having the team since we've sold the business. I think this was my hearing, it was like, are you listening now? And then when I still didn't, it was, okay, now you can't get out of bed. Now, are you listening? So this is when I explored coaching. We'd employed a coach in our business, and for me it was a real, okay, I have to stop now because I can't move, I can't walk, I can't do anything for myself. I couldn't lift my arms. Who am I? What's my purpose? So I actually pretty much said, I'm doing this from course and I'm starting it tomorrow. So I think for me it was that my body telling me, you need to stop this path and find your path. So that really was a huge shift for me. I kind of started to exit out of the business at that point and still worked in it till 2021 for a long time, but it was more on my terms in a role that was more suited to me, getting the business to a point where it could run without us and set something up that was of value, because we'd had a lifestyle business. Nick and I were the center of it. It was our particularly Nick's identity, less so mine. So yeah, it really set me on a path for making big changes in my life that have led us to where we are now, doing what we love with people we love. And part of my process is that initial sort of sales call, chat, get to know you. And some of those I'm sitting there thinking, I don't love you. I am never going to love you. And we are not going to be working together because we are just not the right fit.
Yeah. Yeah. And it is really wonderful when you get that understanding about human behavior and the different behavioral types. And when you start exploring things like my values and my principles and all of those things, when you get into those and when your business matures to having those, you then are very clear on yes and no.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
And that makes a big difference in the success of your business.
Absolutely. And, when I'm working with EOS clients, particularly, we go through, we discover your values. We don't make them up. They're already there. It's just articulating them. And my thing is, you need to be hiring to your values. You need to be managing people to your values, and you need to be terminating if people don't fit your values. But that goes on to, if you have your values, look at your vendors, look at your partners, look at your clients. We've sacked clients over the years, including a council, because the person that we were working with was treating our staff so badly. And we had a few conversations with her manager, and in the end we just said, we're done. We will not allow our staff to be treated this way by your staff. So go find another supplier. Financially, it was a big hit to the business. But there was just this huge sigh of relief from our team when we announced that we have advised them, we've given them 30 days notice. There was this huge sigh of relief. And also they do what they say. And that is, these are our values. And if you don't fit whoever you are, then we need to find a separate, alternative path to success.
Yeah. And I think that's what's really interesting, because I know that most companies probably go through the process of doing values, but it's
Stick 'em up
what
on the
you're
wall.
living, right?
That's it.
Right. So if you're really living it, it's the values, what you spend your money on, what you spend your time on.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And when you
Make it
consistently
worthwhile.
show up,
Yep.
that's the right thing. So so now that you are coaching and mentoring and you've got your new business and training, you are doing all of those things and remotely and in person, which is wonderful. So what is, just looking at strategies, what is one practical strategy that gave you back your sense of power after that second episode?
I think it was probably around looking at my purpose, my values. So not values, but my value. What am I here for? What am I really great at? What gives me joy and what lights me up? And I have this story that I tell myself that I'm not creative. And Nick keeps pulling me up on it and saying, years and years and years ago, I did a course and I played a game at the end of it. And I loved the game. I loved the message in the game. And it was specific to our IT industry. And I've been looking for it for years. A few weeks ago, I thought, I can recreate this game. And I've never seen the game. I've never seen anything like it. But I thought, with ChatGPT, with AI, I can recreate this. So I set about recreating the game from my memory. And Nick was kind of watching me and he said to me, you know how you say you're not creative? These last few days doing this, you are like, you've had this glow about you. You're just loving it. So I think finding things that I love doing, that purpose, that really, I'm get up in the morning and I'm ready to go. and watching myself and saying, if I'm dragging myself out of bed and feeling obligated to do things, I'm not living my purpose. I'm not really even adding value. So really structuring what I do, because we've got about 6 different things, businesses and things on the go, which is pretty normal for us. Putting boundaries in place to say this this is where I'm doing my best work and adding the most value and having the most fun doing it, and do that, and things that just don't do it. Offload it, find somebody else.
Well, I know in all the time I've known you, when you're the happiest is when it's something can be a serious subject, but you are finding the humour
Yeah.
and the spontaneity in it. I can remember when we were playing roles with your team at a training when we had someone be a princess. That was heaps of fun. But it is about having that fun and that creativity. And I think we've all got rules around what creativity is. And I think, back from childhood probably, we underestimate that creativity actually is in everything. And if we're bored, it's because we've let the creativity slide.
Absolutely. I probably think of creativity in a very small box, and that's people who can paint, draw, sing, a very short list of what creative is. But as you said, there are so many ways to be creative. And I know you sing. My standard thing is, at the end of the night, if you want everybody to go home, I'll start singing and they will immediately leave, clutching their ears, going, my ears, my ears. But yeah, so I think even, at 1 week off having the 18th anniversary of my 42nd birthday, turning 60 next week, which I have a severe case of age denial. We still tell ourselves these stories, and it's catching ourselves and saying, what are you talking about to yourself? Yeah, we just still tell ourselves these stories and probably do it until the day we depart this earth.
Now, fostering international students, and I've met a couple of them.
Mm-hmm. Our kids.
It is an amazing commitment that you and your family do, because you do bring them in like family.
Mm-hmm.
They get the clipped humour.
They do.
They learn all about different food. They are encouraged to grow and blossom. And then when they go back home, you are still part of their family, and you travel and see them for special occasions and while you're overseas. It's just, you go beyond what my, understanding of being an international student exchange parent. Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to go on exchange when I was a kid and applied, went through the whole process, and I believe what happened was when my father found out that he had to pay, that was the end of the story. And it was literally just never mentioned again. So I wanted the opportunity. I wanted my kids to go, but I didn't want to push them to go. They had to want to go. We hosted one as kind of to open the door to our kids to say, this is a thing. And that just started this love of bringing these kids into our family, embracing them as our own, figuring out what worked for us, just giving them an opportunity to have the best year of their lives. And we actually met a guy who had been on an exchange student in our hometown of Echuca 15, 16 years earlier. And he said to me that going on exchange gave him the courage as an adult to change things that were not working in his life. Where he said he saw his friends kind of get stuck in their lives, and they had commitments and mortgages and families and parents to keep happy and live up to their expectations. But he said he just had the courage to say, this is just not working for me. I'm going to go and do something else. And I loved that. And I wanted to give these kids the opportunity to just have the most incredible year in a very safe, loving and fun household. So we're actually going to Europe for Christmas, and we're spending Christmas in Stockholm with our Swedish daughter and her Swedish parents, us being her Australian parents. And so she's 30, and she turned 17 when she was on exchange with us, maybe 18. Then we're going to Bruges in Belgium and doing New Year with as many of our kids as can come. Nick turned 60 a year and a half ago. 3 of our exchange students came for his birthday. None can make it for mine, unfortunately, because they're all working and got their own lives. But we'll see most of them for New Year in Belgium. They're just part of our lives. And we've loved this insight into their families. Their families are our families. Our 2 sons went on exchanges. Oscar spent a year in Stockholm. Sam spent a year in Norway. And it's made them sort of these global citizens. Oscar's now in Melbourne in a job that he just loves. He's just absolutely in the best place we've ever seen him. Sam's living in London. He's applying for permanent residency. His girlfriend is English, so he'll probably stay there. They're actually here in Bali, but all of my kids and family will be here starting to arrive Friday for a week of the fiesta of Jeni. We just have this amazing world family that we created through hosting, and it's just become a very big part of our lives. And we've had the good, bad, and ugly. We've had a couple that just did not work at all. But I learned through that act quickly. The first one we let go too long, and it just got really, really almost toxic, and we should have acted quickly. So for the next couple that were just not right, there were just nothing wrong with the kids, nothing wrong with us, just the wrong fit. And probably one of our favourite exchange students came to us from another family that was the same. We adore her, but the first family she was with, she was just miserable. And when she got dropped off to us with 4 hours notice and 3 hours notice. They rang at 4 and she arrived at 7 p.m. She was miserable, and she said to me, I don't cry, and I've cried for a month. But with us, she just thrived, and we absolutely adore her. So again, it's got to be that right fit. We just figured out how to make it work and love it. Absolutely loved it.
Yeah. Every time you speak about them, share photos, it's like the extended families. I know the boys.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I know
We even
your
got
last.
adopted by an Italian nonna.
Right.
Costi's grandmother adopted us as her other kids.
How beautiful. How beautiful. Well, your life shows that flexibility of thought, belief, and action allows you to take advantage of the opportunities come around. You see different perspectives through your business, through your health, through the kids. Having both of your boys be away on exchange is another perspective as well. And I think, and now that you're living your international lifestyle where, it's like, follow me on Facebook because, I don't know where I'm going to be next week.
Exactly.
It's really good. Well, seeing as it must be about cup of tea time or something in Bali, so I will let you go. Jeni, thank you for letting us step into your world and sharing the silence, the struggle, and the joy. What shines through is your tenacity, but also your humanity and the reminder that resilience isn't about doing it all alone, but about finding new ways to connect, adapt, and thrive. To everyone listening, life can change in a heartbeat or on a plane. But as Jeni has shown us, even in the hardest moments, there are strategies, there is support, and there can be joy. This has been Suddenly Different. I'm Leigh-Anne Charland. Until next time, may you find strength in your challenges, courage in your choices, and delight in the unexpected gifts along the way. Thank you so much, Jeni. Happy birthday.
Thanks so much for having me. Thank you.
This has been Suddenly Different I'm Leigh-Anne Charland, and I'm so grateful you shared your time with me. If you felt a spark, a tear, or a moment of recognition, I hope you'll pass that gift along by sharing this show. Take a deep breath, trust your path, and I'll meet you back here soon.